Hello, everybody, and welcome to a very special Sunday edition of Self Modifying Code. Today, we are going to be talking about some viruses and virus related cards, so virus and virus accessories, that are going to be coming out in the new Nisei system gateway. And with me to discuss these cards and how they're going to impact the game and our decks are two metamates from the Boswash meta, Teo and Rob. Why don't the two of you go ahead and introduce yourselves and tell everybody a little bit about yourselves before we dive into it?
Hey, I'm Rob. I'm Gronkopf on JNet. I don't know. I think I'm here to represent the sort of spike nerd viewpoint.
And I'm Teo, Rosino987, anywhere, literally everywhere I've ever made an account. And I am here to talk jank and how I wish Surge was still a card.
Yeah, I mean, Surge was a great card. Surge was a great card. So we're looking first. I figured the first one we would want to talk about is one of the ones that I think is the most interesting, but not necessarily the most powerful out of the ones that we're going to be spoiling today, and that is Cookbook. So the people watching have it. I have a little like study setup where the card is super big off to the one side, so they should be able to read it pretty clearly. People watching the stream, let me know if you're not able to read the card, but I tried to make it nice and big. So Cookbook is a one-cost, unique virtual resource. That means that our boy Apex can use it. Whenever you install a virus program, you may place one virus counter on it. So it's Grimoire, but it's not... it's not... What was it? Was Grimoire 4 credits or 3 credits? I want to say it was 3 credits, but maybe I'm
wrong. I think it was
3.
3 credits, yeah.
And we're going to try to answer questions from the chat as much as we can. And it's not a console. It is unique, so you can't have a bunch of these, so you know you're putting down a cache and putting 6 virus tokens on it. But it only costs 1, so it's going down pretty quick, right?
So this card has a lot going for it. It's the best kind of resource. Malia can't hit it. Gachapon can install it.
Right.
And it's only 1 credit to install.
Yeah, I mean, I think the big thing that makes this, even though it might be a somewhat, go into somewhat jankier decks that can spare the space for it, the fact that it only costs 1 makes this imminently more playable than if it was 2 or 3, right? Like, it being 1, like, if you're all in on viruses, you might be like, yeah, maybe this is worth it, you know?
Yeah, it's definitely better than the Nihilist, which is, I think, maybe the slot it's competing with.
Yeah, I would say that's probably right. Yeah, in those types of decks.
Yeah, it's cool because I think you were pointing out before the stream that you can that it works well with the chisel.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because it puts the 1 counter on it.
So there's maybe a deck there.
Yeah,
and I like that it doesn't... Oh, sorry.
No, go ahead. Yeah.
I like that it doesn't care about whether or not the virus comes in with any counters or not.
Yeah,
and
that's...
so like if you install
specify.
a hive mind, yeah, it'll come in with 2, but if you install cache, it'll come in with 4, right? It just adds 1 whether or not it comes in with any.
Right.
I love that as soon as you said that, Dan was like, yeah, a hive mind, and I was about to say, oh yeah, 1 strength turtle.
Yeah, 1 strength turtle. The thing that I was thinking of is the new... oh, crap, before I even say this. Has the Shaper virus been spoiled by somebody else yet?
The Win the Game virus?
The Win the Game virus.
I really think so. Maybe chat can tell you.
Maybe chat can tell me.
I think Conduit's the only one we've seen.
Yeah, Conduit's the one that works like medium, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So... this combos incredibly well with Conduit, right? And a lot of Anarchs are going to run like 1 or 2 copies of Conduit as their game changer or as their game ender, right? So it coming out and then immediately having the counter on it, very good.
It's got like really big zero equity in the sense that you never mind if you hit this with a 0.
Yeah.
It took me a second, but yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah.
I don't play Anarch enough to fully understand losing a card and what it means to me when I lose the card.
Ha, what do you mean don't play cards?
Yeah.
What do you mean trash cards? Yeah, no trash, only install. Also, this card, from an aesthetic standpoint, has a beautiful piece of Cat Shen art on it with some quality viruses illustrations from days past.
Oh yeah. What's the I remember the art that's the beluga or whatever kind of whale that is.
Yeah,
that's
Darwin.
Darwin, that's right. There we go.
Back in the dark times of like 2013, where if you were playing noise, you had garbage. You had to have that Darwin just ticking up in the background to help you break ice. You had like a 1 of Darwin in your deck, just as your backup, because Crypsis was like such a money dump, and or Anarchs especially were very poor in the pre-liberated world.
Indeed.
All right, so other things that are kind of interesting to think about. So let's think about fringe cases. Is there anything that becomes exciting because this is virtual? We already mentioned that it's Gashapon fodder, and because it's not like a person, it can't be hit by Malia.
Right, and Utai cares about installed virtual resources, right?
Correct, and so
That's
does
true.
Adore.
Yeah, Adore cares about that. So this, and once you have those 3, Adore is a not bad central break or a sentry breaker. Like, especially since a lot of the sentries that we're seeing spoiled have more than one subroutine, being able to break all subroutines for 0 is pretty good on a sentry breaker.
Yeah, although with tour guide rotating, I'm wondering how much play it's really going to see.
No, I mean, I think that's definitely fair, but I just say, like, these are not insignificant things if you're going in on specific builds.
Yeah, I think that short of making this hardware, this is about as good as this kind of card can be. Like, it kind of does everything you want.
Yeah. And this also has like a big block of really good flavor text on it. It waits on an unlabeled mem strip far below the deepest tab. Angry, desperate souls seek it out. Hungry for power to change a brutal world. Once they can stomach no more bitter revenge, they return to that nameless tunnel. The book, A Recipe Thicker. So it's like the anarchist. It's literally the anarchist cookbook, right? But it's like the digital version of that idea from like the early days of the internet, where there was a big online repository of anti-establishment information about how to do different things that was like kept online. And so this is the idea that this is the deep knowledge that you can find if you're in that dark web. And that's
in the shadow net.
Yeah, in the deep shadow net there. I don't know. I think it's good, and I think it's actually really good that it's got 3 influence on it, because it's going to be really hard to borrow and put into other factions that could do more degenerate things with it.
Yeah, but I mean, so like with cash rotating, so Pawn Shop doesn't care about viruses at all. I'm trying to think of what other factions would really want it. Like, I don't think you'd play it just for like strength 1 turtle on install, right?
No, but you could bring it into Shaper for your Palangis and your imps. I guess if you're running imp, you don't want to also run this because that's half your influence.
Yeah, that's
more
true.
or less.
People are mentioning Tranquilizer as comboing very well with this.
Is that the D-Res one that we just saw a while back?
I believe that's correct.
That's right. It de-reses when it has 3 counters on it, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Does it get one on install? I have to see if I could pull that back up.
I think it does. I think all of them except for Leech in the new core or in the gateway set are when you install it and when your turn begins, place 1 virus counter on it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and again, as everybody in chat is mentioning, this definitely, if you want to go in on that hive mind business, this is the card. This is the card to add that rocket fuel to your jank.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly.
Yeah, this is part of why I wish Surge was a card, because I know before getting on the stream, we talked a little bit about whether we wanted to do any deck building, and I was like, no, I don't know anything about deck building for Anarchs, and then you showed me these cards, and I immediately went to JNet, and I was like, how can I build Degeneracy with Hive Mind? And my first roadblock was that Surge is no longer a thing.
It's a real shame.
Well, but there's the
isn't there a
there's
new
the
Surge?
Contaminate.
There's Contaminate, right? But it just has the specification that there's nothing on it right now, right?
Exactly.
Correct.
So it's a non-bow with Cookbook.
Yeah.
Which is good, because again, they're trying to create things where you have. So I mentioned this in the video that's going to go live next Sunday. I played several matches with different opponents with the dual decks from System Gateway, one a very new player and one an experienced player, which, like I said, that'll go live on the channel next week. And one of the things that I talk about there in the cards, no specific spoilers, is that the design aesthetic that Nisei is really taken with the new stuff that they're trying to do going forward, that's not building off of the card pool of FFG, is let's get back to cards not all bonusing with each other. So like when you choose a card, you are choosing a deck building avenue instead of it being, this is the engine that Anarch plays, this is the engine that Criminal plays, this is the engine that Shaper plays, and season 4 points of influence to taste. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
Because that's what happens when you have this giant card pool, is like you can shave efficiency down to this really narrow margin, so it takes away a lot of meaningful deck building decisions, except for insofar as you're making a deck worse. You know what I mean? Which you and I have had. I've had this conversation with the both of you, where you're like, Dan, aren't you just making this deck worse?
Yes.
Yeah. And we want to get back to, all right, I want to build an engine with this, which means I'm not going to get bonuses with this, so I'm being pushed into a different engine for this faction, as opposed to it being everything's one engine. But yeah, so let's move on to the next one, unless, do either one of you have any more comments that you want to make on this card?
No, I think we summed that one up.
All right, so I think, let me make sure that this is going to work. Did it work? Okay, give me 1 second. All right, there it is. My card changer worked. So now we're looking at Botulis, and man, am I in love with this card.
It looks good.
So good. Another incredible piece of Cat Shen art. Thank you. For those who don't know, Botulis is like a disease that can happen in most commonly in canned foods, right? Or like certain like pre-prepared foods, if they sit too long or if a little bit of air gets inside of them. And it's really deadly, and it's also what's in Botox, because it tightens up your muscles.
Yep.
Now, was it something you ate? Yeah. So install only on a piece of ice, 2 to install, no strength. When you install this program and your turn begins, place 1 virus counter on this. So if you're playing this with the Cookbook, it would come in with 2 on it. Right? Hosted virus counter, break a subroutine on host ice. So it's so
sorry,
good.
go ahead.
It's so good, right? I just imagine putting this on a toll booth and just saying, thank you for spending 8 credits. Would you like to trash it? Because I'm going to break it for free every turn. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, it's Anarch Boomerang.
Right. And it's like a hybrid of Parasite and David, where it's going to lead to trashes because they're going to want to make space for ice that doesn't have Botulis on it.
Or is it going to lead to every corp slotting Magnet?
I mean, that'd be funny. Magnet gets reprinted, right?
Yeah, there's a replacement.
Oh, I thought it got directly.
Oh, did it get directly reprinted?
Yeah, I think it's a direct reprint in the new core.
So the reason, Ratsuka, that this doesn't have the icebreaker tag is so that cards that say you cannot use paid abilities on things that aren't icebreakers affect this. If this said icebreaker on it, then it would get past basically the only defense against this.
Navi Mumbad Grid, right?
Yeah.
Is that the one?
Yeah.
And then there's next activation command, and there's also Hagen.
Yeah, that's true too. Yeah. But I just love this card. I love the design of it. I love that it's 3 influence, right? So it's very much so an Anarch tool, but maybe Shapers, kind of like David, Shapers can be like, I want 1. I'll put 1 in.
Maybe.
For that piece of ice that I have a hard time breaking, for the...
Yeah, and increasingly it seems like Shaper has more and more of those pieces of ice that they have trouble breaking.
Yeah. Give me just 1 second.
I wonder if Shapers have to pick between this and Boomerang.
Well, Boomerang's 2 influence breaks 2 subroutines and recurs itself. Obviously this has like simulchip synergy, but I kind of don't see Shapers splashing either. But I guess if you really need that effect, I think Boomerang is going to just be more generically powerful.
That's fair. Yeah, it hits more situations than Botulis does.
Exactly. I guess like a Colors of Disease style smoke could use this. With Knob Kari, but again, I think that list is pretty influence strapped to begin with.
I agree.
Yeah.
I think the other thing is this card has like a sort of looming dread for like remote lock decks, right?
Yeah.
If you're on if you're a Glacier deck up against, let's say, a Shaper or like a late game Anarch, and you're probably spending, unless you're like really jamming, if this is on like an Anansi or something that you're really counting to tax the runner, and it's clicking up to 3 counters every time you get a scoring window, that's going to be tough. And it adds another vector where certain defensive pieces that corps have not been using are going to become effective again, like resible purge items or ice that have purge effects, right? Become better.
Yeah, because we haven't seen any macrophage in the meta recently.
No, but you know what I mean. Like,
sure.
Being able to say that like everybody needs I like metas where people need an array of tools, as opposed to everybody just being like, I'm doing my thing and just ignoring what my opponent's doing, right?
Yeah, of course. And just making...
Lady, come here. Your fans want to see you.
Stretching corp tech slots is important, because if corps don't need to tech, they can just go all in on a single strategy and have a super streamlined deck that's hard for any runner to attack. Whereas if they have to spend 3-4 slots on tech cards for the various proactive runner strategies, the meta is just like, it slows down a little and you have sort of more strategic games.
I agree. Yeah. I like that, where especially when I like best, even though I'm personally not very good at playing in these types of scenarios, I love when you get to the point where it comes down to, because these are the games I love playing, like when I'm out after the cut in like New York and I'm watching the last few games of the cut wrap, and just watching people have to be like, is this upgrade, is this upgrade, are they holding the Botulis in hand or aren't they, and like those types of matches where you have to try to think not just of how you win but how you lose.
Yeah, exactly. And just like the mantra of, well, force them to have it.
Yeah.
If they have it, I lose. If they don't, I win. Nothing else to do. Let's, like, it all comes down to a single decision, which can be fun.
Yeah, no, I like it. So do we have any fringe cases? E3 is back, right?
Just temporarily.
Do we know if we're getting an E3 like effect? Has that been spoiled anywhere? I don't know if we're getting one at all because I wasn't a playtester this time around.
The full core's been spoiled, and I'm 99% sure that E3 isn't in it, and it's all reprints anyway. So
Okay.
Yeah, we're not getting a direct E3 reprint. If there's an effect coming out in Gateway, we haven't seen it yet.
Yeah. And I think that's why they can print something like this. Because what I was just about to say is if something like E3 or E3 like effect was to come back, it would be a nightmare with this card. You know what I'm saying? Where it's like, oh, I just put this out and now I can break your Anansi for 2 credits, and a virus counter off of Botulis.
yeah, I guess like having a super efficient way to deal with a single piece of ice per turn hasn't traditionally been like super oppressive.
Unless medium's back.
I mean,
And you're only you're only running R&D.
If you can completely tunnel on a single server, that's true, and maybe that strategy is viable with Conduit.
Yeah.
and does that situation not apply to Ngolo? A tool that's super efficient on a piece of ice that you would have trouble breaking otherwise.
But it's not actually super efficient. Like, to break Anansi is 7 credits.
Right.
So if you can do that once per turn and deal with all the other ice too, you probably have like a very good economy engine set up, and you probably deserve to win the game.
Yeah, I think that's fair.
Yeah, okay.
All right, so let's move on. Give me 1 second. I'll bring up the next card. And the next card is Fermenter. Again, another incredible piece of Cat Shen abstract art. It's a virus that costs 1. When you install this program and when your turn begins, place 1 virus counter on this. So we have we're in Drip City. We're in Infection Drip. Click for credit, or click and trash. Gain 2 credits for each hosted virus counter on it. So this is Drip Econ that, the Corp can just get rid of anytime they want,
Yeah, so I think that this card says, like, eventually the Corp might get nervous and misplay and purge, and if they do that, you win the game.
Right. No, I think you're right. I think this creates the situation where people are going to have the itch to purge this rather than let it drip down, and, like, losing that tempo as opposed to, let's say, an average of 6 credits coming off of this. It's always the wrong choice.
Yeah, exactly.
It's going to be almost always the wrong choice, right? Letting this drip down is the correct choice. Because it's still 2 clicks to utilize this card and multiple turns of it dripping. Which is nice because it creates background pressure for Anarchs that it doesn't have a high install cost, right? I think that's the big thing. Oh, go ahead.
It does have a high install cost, which is 1 MU.
That's true. So this is something you'd probably only feasibly be able to play in the early game unless you were playing a high MU console and you just, like, tossed one down in the mid game, right?
Yeah, and even then, I'm not sure that this is going to be winning you any games.
No, but I think
lost.
I think one of these could make its way into, like, a freedom deck, right?
I also think that putting one of these down turn 1 or turn 2 of the game will make that fork a lot more give it a bigger payoff for you, right? If you're making the Corp purge on turn 3 or 4 or 5 before they're really in their groove, then you've, like, gained the tempo that you want with this card. And if it ticks up to 5 or 6 and you get 10, 12 credits, then that's also a hugely impactful tempo piece for you for 1 credit, 1 click, 1 MU while you're setting up.
Sure. So then, but if you want it on turn 1 or 2 every game, you have to run 3.
That's true.
And that is the downside.
Yeah, that's the rub, right?
Yeah.
But yeah,
And
I don't think this is a strong card. I do think it's an interesting card.
It's a great teaching card. It's going to teach a lot of Corp players what the cost of a purge is.
Yeah. And I also think that this is going to teach people about, like, slots, right? Because, like I said, I think a case could be made if you're looking at a freedom deck or a loop deck that's focused on viruses, right? And you're like, I have like one slot left. Like, you could toss one of these in there, right?
Should I put in a fermenter or a dirty laundry?
Oh, come on. We're assuming the 3 dirty laundries are already in there. But you get what I'm saying. Like, there's room for this as, like, a background thing. The way I used to toss, like, a single, like, money resource into a shaper deck if I had, like, a spare slot. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I mean, I think that, like, in a weird wacky world of Eternal where Pawn Shop gets banned, this is awesome in a noise deck.
Yeah, I really like this. People are mentioning in chat that the kinds of decks that run Consume could run this instead if they want to spend that influence elsewhere. It's not a direct translation, of course, but it is a potential option.
It's true.
That's
I
true.
suppose it deals with, like, late game. I found my chips my simul chips at the bottom of my stack, and now I don't have anything to do with them, so I might as well just, like, recur these fermenters.
Right. Yeah, that's true too. And I also think the fermenter can help you drip up some money in that case if you're not able to get accesses and trash to power up the Consume.
But then, as we're talking about serious stuff, we also have, on the opposite end of that spectrum, we've got the Hive Mind jank, where Fermenter's pretty freaking great. If you've got a Hive Mind with 3 counters on it, you've got your Cookbook down mid-game, late game. It's
because
like,
because it doesn't say that you have to trash the hosted counters. It just says for the counters on it.
Exactly.
So if you had a Hive Mind, let's just say base Hive Mind. Hive Mind starts with 1 or 2 on it.
Starts with 1. If Cookbook's down, you get 2.
Right. So then this would functionally have 3 counters on it, 4 counters on it in that scenario. So you'd be spending 2 clicks for a net of 7 credits,
which is pretty medium.
Yeah,
it's lucky find.
It's pretty medium. It's a lucky find.
Better than lucky find.
Yeah, it's 1 credit better.
I want those 4 credit clicks. That's what I'm looking for.
Sean, Cookbook had virtual as its only, and it was a unique here. I could just go back and show it. Give me 1 second. So Cookbook was a 1-cost unique virtual resource. Then we had Botulis, which was a 2-cost 1 MU virus that gets hosted on an ice. All right. So, what else do we want to talk about with Fermenter? Is there anything we haven't covered yet?
This one's pretty straightforward, I think.
We're losing tech traders, right?
Yes.
Oh.
Yeah, those are Sansan, no?
Yeah, we have to be losing them because if
we're losing Geist.
Yeah, because this thing. Oh, we're not losing tech traders? Then this card is way better than I thought.
Wait, tech traders sticking around?
They're in Mumbad.
Apparently
Oh, right, they're in Mumbad.
Yeah.
So that means you can put this down, and if you have all 3 down, this is in a 2 clicks for a base of 5 credits right out of the gate.
And if you have your Cookbook down, and if you have your Hive Mind down,
oh my God, Rob! But
you're looking for your 4 credit clicks, man. There they are.
But if you're playing a deck that runs tech traders, you could have this. Then this, I would say, if you were playing a tech trader deck, this card gets significantly more viable if you are that deck.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Sure. Yeah, if that deck is in Anarch, because I think that those decks tend to be pretty tight on influence. And
how much is tech traders? What, 2 influence?
Just 1.
One.
Is it 2? I thought it was 1.
No, I think it's just 1.
Yeah, it's 1 influence. So you could play that in an Anarch deck. There's a lot of trash cans in Anarch.
Yeah, and then you just splash for boomerangs, and you've got infinite econ.
Yeah. Yeah, people are
Well,
like, oh, somebody in chat was like, and you also have 3 wastelands. See, now we're talking. Now we're talking the real efficiency, baby.
isn't Wasteland unique? Oh no,
No, it's
no, I'm
not.
thinking
It's
of
just
Reaver.
Apex.
Yeah.
Wait, is Reaver even unique?
Reaver is also not unique.
Yeah,
No,
okay,
it's just
all right.
it's just
I played
Apex.
Netrunner.
Yeah, everybody in chat is pausing to think about boomerang tech traders out of Anarch.
Yeah. New meta. Just to make Fermenter good too. That's the best part of this.
Yeah, I mean, we can make new meta. I have built decks around far worse cards than this. far worse cards. Yeah, I'm into it. I'm into this card. It's okay. Rob will look at my deck and be like, why don't you just play this better deck instead? And I'll say, but this one has Fermenter in it.
Yeah.
All right, so now we're looking at Leech, which is got a very, very cool piece of art with a cool slug on it. And it's also by Katchen. And it is very similar to one of the staple cards of Netrunner, with one important difference. Does either one of you want to get into what that difference is?
Yeah, so I'm nervous, and I hope Nisei knows what they're doing, because printing a strictly better data sucker is a pretty big statement. This one can break Archangel in a central server.
Well, it can't break it. It can interact with it.
Well, yeah, that's all I mean. Okay, fine. It can't break anything. But honestly, I think pretty unplayable because it doesn't combo with Chisel.
God. So is that what this stream is going to be now, Rob?
No, this card's great.
No, I mean, of course it's great. It's a strictly better
sucker.
Yeah, the strictly better sucker. It's got great art. It's got great flavor text. I love it.
Wait, now, why doesn't it combo with Chisel? Oh, because you're already encountering
right.
it. So
Chisel checks right at the beginning of the counter.
Gotcha. Okay.
So, Rob, do you want to explain the phrasing difference to the audience?
Oh, yeah, because Data Sucker, for no reason at all, says stipulates that the ice has to be rezzed. It says the rezzed ice that you're currently encountering. And I think really that's just attributable to early Netrunner not really having templating down. But anyway, so this one just says the ice you are encountering gets -1.
So all of the ice that you can access from hand and now suddenly be encountering, those ice are technically not rezzed. So previously you could not use Data Sucker to deal with those ice. So this works on an Archangel from that you access from hand.
Sapper or
Sapper, you're probably not going to need it, but yeah.
No, but like those are none of which were printed by the time Data Sucker was out, right? Like you didn't have those effects when Data Sucker was first printed.
Yeah. So yeah, because it's definitely an edge case. It doesn't come up that often, especially since Data Sucker, when the fixed strength breakers fell out of popularity. Recently we've seen a resurgence of Data Sucker, but for a long time, Data Sucker wasn't really in a lot of Anarch decks, right? All of them were just on David's and the Conspiracy Breakers with like multi-access tools and money. You know what I'm saying?
Exactly. Because why would you play Data Sucker if you're playing Inject?
Right. And because Inject was such a big deal for such a long time for Anarch, you just did not really see Data Sucker. So Data Sucker was really something that was used as like a one-of in like Criminals and Shapers to improve the efficiency of whatever breaker you didn't borrow from another faction. You know? Your nanotechs, your bad criminal decoders and stuff like that.
Exactly. Yeah. I am wondering, like this isn't really a direct response to the effective Data Sucker reprint, but like modernly that slot is just competing with Rizeki, both in terms of MU and influence spend.
Right.
And I'm really interested if we're gonna be able to like design ourselves a meta where Data Sucker sees or Leech now sees any amount of play outside of like freedom decks.
Yeah, because I would like that. It's an interesting, thought-provoking card that changes like the math on a bunch of runs. You know,
Exactly. I was playing Data Sucker for a long time after Rizeki came out in like 419 lists. And I took a lot of heat for it, and eventually I came around to realizing that Rizeki was just, kind of silly not to include. But
Right.
but I really want to get back to the Data Sucker builds because I think it's just more like it's slightly more interesting.
Yeah, it's
Um,
another resource that you have to effectively manage.
exactly, and that the corp has to effectively manage as well.
Mhm.
Right,
Um,
because one of the most interesting things. I mean, obviously, a lot of the criminal decks that were running Rizeki were also running Amakua and stuff, which put pressure on archives. But for other decks, right, Shapers, Anarchs, right, besides like your dirty laundries, there wasn't a lot of pressure. You know,
exactly.
when you get back to a meta that has Data Sucker, then the corp really does have to think about, well, I need to commit an ice to archives. How good of a piece of ice am I going to commit to archives, or how many pieces of ice? Because these leech counters, these Data Sucker counters, can be significantly reducing the effectiveness of my scoring remote. And if that's the
Yeah,
case, then it creates a whole new decision line of how to allocate ice, because not dealing with them having a leech or two can end up making your entire remote trivial
Mhm.
if
exactly.
you don't manage that threat.
Yeah.
That's
But
super
then
true.
on
Lucky
the
for
other
corpse.
side,
Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Teo.
I was gonna say on the other side of this, and I think this is exactly what you were gonna say, is that sandbox is a thing that has been seeing a pretty dominating portion of at least the games I've been playing.
Yeah, because at least even if you don't have any viruses to purge, if you have literally like nothing else to do because you're not drawing into an agenda, you can always click for 4 instead of clicking for 3, right?
Hmm.
Exactly. Yeah. Um, and heaven forbid you ever score 2.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's always the sweet spot when you have the 2 sandboxes and you get that purge. Delicious.
Hmm.
I played little mini games with myself as a runner. Like, I'm not allowed to let a corp fire a turn 1 Rashida ever. Um,
Yeah,
and
I think that's a good promise to make to yourself.
and then the other one I play is I'm not allowed to ever let someone score a second Cyberdex unless it just ends the game.
Right.
Um, uh, and like, yeah, I don't think there's much point in playing after that second one is scored anyway, unless the runner's going to win on that turn.
Right.
Hmm.
Um, but yeah, there's a lot of virus hate. I think like Macrophage just seeing a ton of play speaks to how powerful Sandbox is.
Hmm.
Uh, so like dripping a guaranteed credit a turn for right now is unfortunately like kind of clearly better than being able to lower the strength of an ice you're encountering.
Right. I agree.
But we'll see if that changes in the future. Um, and I think that like with other have we seen all of the okay, no, I don't know what's been spoiled and what hasn't, unfortunately.
I'm the last thing for spoiler week, I believe, of the ones that were going to be spoiled during spoiler week.
So everyone knows what red team is?
I believe so.
Okay, cool. Yeah, so like clearly there's some whether or not you think that card is like good and playable, there's a lot of support for run-based at least criminal. And I think there's an argument to be made that red team is actually better out of faction.
I
Um
agree with that.
uh and it might be really good in a more run-based anarch, which is not something we've seen um in a long time. So like it would be really cool to see these strategies be viable, basically is all I'm saying, which would enable Leech over Rizeki as a deck building decision.
All right. Yeah. So I'm going to ask the two of you a question. We're going to take Leech off the table because Leech is far and away the most immediately useful powerful virus in this set because it hits the table, it works as intended, right?
Mm-hmm.
Of the other three, which card is your favorite, and which card do you think is going to see the most play? We'll start with you, Teo.
I think the answer to both of those questions is Botulis.
All right, so tell me why.
I like the idea of the quote unquote Anarch equivalent of Boomerang. Right? I like that it synergizes well with some of the other cards we've seen, right? It synergizes well with Cookbook. It has, the ability to basically blank Toll Booth out of the gate, right? You install it and you can make that run and it costs you, 5 instead of having to pump your Black Orchestra as well, or, fire your Ngolo. But I like this idea that it synergizes with the idea of Hippo. It synergizes with the idea of Anarch being ice destruction, even if you're not trashing it yourself. Just making the corp have to think about, like, how much do I really value this piece of ice, and should I just get rid of it?
Okay, so I've got one for you, Rob, and this is one. I'm piggybacking off of what you're saying, Teo. So here's something using good cards that might actually happen in a game using only good cards. So if you had Botulis down in an Anarch deck, and you had Simulchip, which is a good card. Can we agree that Simulchip's a good card?
Without a doubt.
And then Hippo, is that also a good card?
Hippo is a really good card.
Imagine, if you will, you use Botulis to kill a piece of ice with Hippo, and then you immediately bring it back into play for the next ice on the server.
And for free, no less.
And for free, no less.
And this is exactly what I was saying.
Yeah, this is actually a really good interaction. Like,
exactly right.
Yeah.
And so the only problem is going to be, when the next ice on the server costs the corp 3 credits, but it's a 5 strength 3 subroutine code gate, or a 5 strength 2 subroutine code gate.
Yeah. All right.
So, like, I think Botulis is an amazing card. Don't get me wrong. It's that it's a really bad meta call. Not that it's a bad meta call. It does some things very well. If you are up against a Glacier that's running Surveyor, and you know that they don't have any tag punishment, or it's the late game and you're just not going to play around the tag punishment anymore, it breaks Surveyor amazingly well.
Sure.
Like, there are all kinds of things it does really well. It's just that we're in a slot machine, Engram flush, etc. Meta. Yeah, Anansi too. Why not?
Right. Yeah. No, I think you're right. I gotcha. So that's your 2. So let's talk a little bit about you, Rob. What are your picks? What's the one you like the most, and which one do you think is going to see the most play besides Leech?
So easy Cookbook for the meme strips reference. And I think Botulis is going to see the most play, and with good reason. Like, it does a lot of things well. I hope it gets there. The last couple of days, I've been trying to build like just a reg Anarch list, mostly out of freedom. I've been trying just because, why not? Kill all the combo decks that are coming along. And I really wanted to get there. I haven't managed it yet. Hopefully someone better at deck building than I am will manage to. But I think that Botulis could have a home there, especially if you're running Simulchips.
I agree. So now for my pick. The card that I like the most... Oh, man, I can't believe I'm going to do this to myself. Rob's never going to let me forget it. The card that I like the most is Fermenter.
Because you like to click for credits.
I love to click for credits. I love it. I love trashing cards for money. It's my favorite thing. Like, trashing cards for money. I love Technical Writer. I love Bank Job. If I can trash a card for money, I'm in it. I'm in it to win it. Red Zeki, baby. Now, as far as the one that I think is going to see the most play, I think that is an easy slam dunk for Botulis. I think it solves some actual problems that happen with some of the weird virus-based rigs, right, that are floating around. It's a really good one of tool. Like I could definitely see putting one into a like a toolbox shaper, right? And just saying, how about I don't worry about this toll booth, or how about I don't worry about this other like one subroutine ice that's a weird strength. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I'm not sure Joe Pesci appreciates you doing an impression of him as you say that, but you know.
Yeah, thank you. But yeah, and I think the other big thing is all these arts are incredible. You all will see this next Sunday when I publish my video where I played with the System Gateway Advanced decks, and I did a bunch of duels with some friends of mine. And all the art on these cards is just incredible. Nisei really knocked it out of the park with the quality of these arts, because they can approach artists and spend the money to get good art instead of always having to be profit conscious, which, you know, FFG gave us a lot of really great arts. You know what I mean? Oh, the slug video. Let me see if I can... Did you email that to me, or is that in my Slack messages?
Do we? Why do we have to wait a whole week to see your testing video?
Because other things are going. Other information will be arriving in the next week.
So I see.
So that
you're using the full card pool.
I'm using the full pool of cards. They're advanced dual decks that they're using. So that there are non-spoiled cards that are going to come out.
They trusted you with the power of the advanced deck building kit?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. And I didn't even get put into spoiler jail this time by accidentally showing all of the cards on the test server like I did last time.
That's great.
Yeah, because I almost got put in spoiler jail last time. Let me see if I can bring this up, because I'm going to have to put it into another window. Give me a second. All right. What is the way? Okay, let's open it in the browser. That should do it. Give me 1 second. I'm fiddling with my computer. If you're wondering, Teo and Rob, why I'm just saying a bunch of times.
No, that's the same thing I do.
Oh, is it gonna work? No, it's not gonna work. Okay. How can I do this? Can I sign in? No, it's not going to work. I'm just going to have to do a screen capture. Bear with me, everybody. We'll get there, I promise.
So how about them Mets?
Pretty good. Baseball, I'm all in on Blaze Ball, though. You know?
Is that like Blase Ball?
No, you don't know about Blaze Ball? Are you kidding me right now?
I've never heard of such a thing.
So it's like a baseball season simulator where like the teams have like weird like eldritch stats, and like weird stuff happens, and like players have like one player can only be struck out by like certain types of pitches, and then the pitcher can only it's really hard to explain. Somebody explain Blaze Ball to Rob in the chat.
That sounds pretty good.
While I'm doing this, it's very weird. It's like if Welcome to Night Vale ran a fantasy baseball league.
Gotcha.
I always thought of it as backyard baseball, but turned up to like 15. If anyone remembers playing backyard baseball on their old computers and the CDs that used to come in your cereal boxes.
Oh, that was the one. It was like a really silly animation style.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Yes, I remember backyard baseball. Wow, what a blast from the past.
Mm-hmm.
All right, I got the video in here now. Hopefully, it's big enough for everybody to see. I think that should be a pretty good size. Kat has this preview of how the Leech art was made in stages.
Ooh.
So I'll give everybody one more piece there of just, and this is a little spoiler of a bunch of the stuff that you'll be able to see if you watch Kiersa's stream on behind the making, like they're gonna do a behind the cards on a bunch of the arts that were made for the System Gateway pack, and I strongly recommend everybody check that out because it's gonna be super freaking cool.
That is really nice.
All right, let me get back to the Twitch chat. So I think these viruses overall are they're really good.
I'm just glad to see a lot of viruses because we were losing certain mechanics. Like traces are going to be leaving the base game at least. But I'm glad to see viruses sticking around because the viruses are our friends.
I agree. 100%.
Can't live with them. Can't live with them.
Yeah, 100%. So I think that about covers it for these cards. Like we could really get into the weeds, but I think we've kind of whet the appetites of everybody with what's some of the things that these cards are capable of. Gentlemen, thank you so much for taking time out of your Sunday to come hang out and do this with me.
No, this was fun.
Yeah, thanks for hanging out with me. I appreciate it.
Everybody, let me ping Nisei one more time in the chat. And check them out if by some miracle you don't know about Nisei and you're here. And thank you everybody for taking time out of your Sunday to come watch and get hype about System Gateway. And until we see all of you beautiful Netrunner humans again, always be running.